I'm 41 years old, recently divorced, and just when I thought my life had finally calmed down, everything flipped again, because of a birthday card. Not mine. My daughter's. It was my youngest daughter's 10th birthday, and we were having a small party at my place. Just close family, a couple of her school friends, and some neighbors. I'd spent the whole week preparing balloons, cake, her favorite lasagna. It was supposed to be a joyful day. My ex-husband, Mark, came by too. We've been divorced for 2 years, and while we're not exactly friends, we keep it civil for the kids. He brought her a present and a card, like he always does. Nothing unusual, until later that night, when I was cleaning up the wrapping paper and saw a second card tucked inside the gift box. It wasn't signed. It wasn't addressed to my daughter either. It was a romantic card. One of those sappy ones with a sunset on the front and a message about new beginnings and undeniable connection. At first, I thought it was a mistake, maybe it belonged to someone else and got mixed in by accident. But then I flipped it over. There was a note written in tiny, slanted handwriting at the bottom. I miss you already. Can't wait to see you again. Happy birthday to your little girl. You'll be the perfect dad to both. My blood ran cold. I knew that handwriting. I've seen it 1,000 times. It belonged to my sister, Kendra. I sat on the edge of my couch, card in hand, heart pounding so loud it echoed in my ears. The party was over, the kids were in bed, and I was sitting there in silence staring at what might as well have been a confession. The handwriting wasn't just familiar, it was unmistakable. My sister, Kendra, had this overly neat way of writing, almost like a schoolteacher. Even the little heart she always used to draw, her eyes was there, like a cruel signature on a knife. I didn't want to believe it. I kept telling myself maybe it wasn't from her. Maybe Mark was seeing someone else. But the mention of my daughter, the "you'll be the perfect dad to both," there was no denying who it was meant for. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my photos, found an old birthday card Kendra had given me last year. Held it up next to the one from Mark's box. Same paper. Same heart. Same slanted Y that curled under itself. It was her. That night I didn't sleep. I just lay there, replaying everything in my head. Every family dinner. Every time Kendra had offered to help me babysit. All the times Mark had shown up early for drop-offs and stayed too long. I'd brushed it all off as awkwardness. As trying too hard. Now it all made sense. Worse, I remembered something else. A few months back, Kendra had started dodging my calls. Said she was busy. Said she was traveling more for work. I didn't question it. Why would I? I should have questioned it. I should have seen this coming. But I didn't. And now I was holding the proof in my hands, realizing the two people I trusted most had been building something behind my back, and they'd used my daughter's birthday to send each other love notes. I wasn't even angry yet. I was just numb. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table staring into my untouched coffee. My daughter was humming while playing with her new toys, totally unaware that her birthday party had detonated a bomb in my chest. I looked at her, then at my phone. I must have typed and deleted a message to Kendra 10 times. Nothing sounded right. Too polite. Too calm. Too explosive. What do you even say to your sister when you realize she's been sneaking around with your ex-husband? So I didn't send anything. Instead, I called Mark. He didn't answer. No surprise. But 2 hours later, I got a text. Hey, can't talk right now. Can we chat later tonight? Can we chat? Like it was just another casual check-in. I spent the rest of the day spiraling. Every time I walked past that birthday card, I felt sick. I kept thinking about how Mark had smiled at me during the party. How Kendra had sent a text that morning saying she couldn't make it because she was down with a migraine. Yeah, a migraine. Sure. Now I wondered if she was actually across town, in bed with my ex. And here's the worst part, this wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. Because suddenly, I started realizing that other people might have known. My cousin had made a weird comment at Easter about how close Kendra and Mark seemed. My neighbor once asked me if it was awkward having my sister and ex spend so much time together. I'd just laughed it off. But they weren't laughing. They were looking at me, the fool who never saw it. And now I couldn't stop asking myself the question that burned more than all the others. How long had this been going on? By that evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't wait for Mark to call. I drove straight to his apartment. I was shaking the whole way there, fists clenched on the steering wheel, heart beating so fast I thought I'd pass out. I didn't even know what I was going to say. I just knew I needed answers, and I wasn't waiting around for him to find the right time to lie. When I pulled up, I sat in the car for a minute, just watching his windows. I wasn't even sure I wanted to see him. I felt nauseous. But I got out and rang the bell anyway. He answered in sweatpants, looking surprised, but not guilty. Not like someone who was hiding a secret relationship with his ex-wife's sister. I didn't even say hello. I pulled the card from my coat pocket and held it up. He froze. That look, half panic, half resignation, told me everything before he said a word. I asked him point blank, was it from Kendra? He hesitated. Then said yes, just like that. Like it was no big deal. Like I'd just asked if he ordered the wrong size shoes. I felt my whole body go cold. But I stayed still. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stared at him, waiting for him to tell me how it started, why it happened, what the hell they thought they were doing. And he did. He talked like he'd been waiting to get it off his chest. They reconnected a year ago. It just happened. That's what he kept saying. We didn't plan it. We didn't mean for it to go this far. I wanted to scream. A year. A whole year. That was while we were still finalizing the divorce. While I was picking up the pieces of our broken marriage, they were picking each other. I asked him if they were in love. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. That silence was louder than any confession. And the worst part? He didn't even apologize. Not really. He said he felt bad, but not sorry. Said he and Kendra didn't want to hurt me, but that they also didn't want to deny what they had. Like I was just collateral damage in their twisted little love story. I turned and walked out without saying another word. But I wasn't done. Now it was Kendra's turn. I didn't call. I didn't text. I drove straight to Kendra's house. It was late, maybe past 10, but I didn't care. I needed to look her in the eye. I needed to see if she would have the nerve to lie to my face, or worse, say it was true and act like it was no big deal. She opened the door in pajamas, barefoot, with her hair pulled back like she'd just rolled out of bed. And for a second, she actually looked happy to see me. Like everything was normal. That changed fast when she saw the card in my hand. Her face fell. Not with guilt. With annoyance. She didn't even try to deny it. She just sighed and said, I knew you'd find out eventually. I felt like my knees were going to give out. I asked her how she could do this to me. How she could look me in the eye all these months, come to my house, laugh with me, pretend like we were still sisters, while she was sneaking around with my ex-husband. She shrugged. Actually shrugged. And said, it's complicated. No, it wasn't. It was betrayal. Plain and simple. She tried to defend herself, said they didn't mean for it to happen, that things just evolved, that they were both lonely. She said it like it was some kind of accident, like they tripped and fell into bed together. Then came the part that knocked the air out of me. She told me she was in love with him. That it had been going on for over a year. That she didn't tell me because she knew I'd be mad. Mad? That didn't even scratch the surface of what I felt. I asked her if it had started before my divorce. She hesitated for just a second, then said yes. They were together before the ink was even dry on my broken marriage. She said they waited to make it official until after we signed the papers. Like that somehow made it noble. Like they were doing me a favor by hiding it until they could publicly play house. I stood there, frozen, listening to my sister talk about my ex-husband like he was her future. And for the first time in my life, I truly hated her. Not angrily. Not loudly. But in that quiet, sharp, bottom-of-the-heart way you don't come back from. I left without another word. But this wasn't over. They thought they could keep it secret forever. Now it was my turn to decide what I was going to do about it. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't eat, could barely sleep. I felt like I was walking through some distorted version of my life where none of the rules applied anymore. My sister was in love with my ex-husband. My ex-husband had been lying to me for a year. And everyone, my parents, my friends, kept calling to check on me without knowing what had happened. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. I needed to get my head straight first. But then something happened that pushed me over the edge. I got a call from my daughter's school. They said Mark and his partner had picked her up early. Partner? I hadn't given anyone else permission to pick her up. When I asked who it was, the woman on the phone said she didn't get a name, just recognized Mark and saw him with a woman who seemed very close to him. I knew immediately who it was. Kendra. I felt my whole body start shaking. I'd drawn clear boundaries during the divorce. Mark had visitation, yes, but no overnight guests during his parenting time. And certainly not my sister. They weren't just hiding the relationship from me. They were bringing my child into it. And lying about that too. That night, I logged into the shared school account, something Mark and I still had access to from the divorce agreement, and saw it right there in the emergency contact list, Kendra's name, added under authorized pickup. He never asked. He never told me. He just added her. Like I didn't matter. Like he had every right to fold her into our daughter's life without even a conversation. That was the final straw. They thought they could steal behind my back and smile in my face. They thought they could build something on top of my broken trust without facing the fallout. They were wrong. And now I was ready to let everyone know exactly what they'd done. The next morning, I woke up with a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in days. They'd crossed a line bringing my daughter into their mess. A huge one. And if they weren't going to be ashamed of what they'd done, then I had no reason to keep their secrets anymore. So I made a decision. I posted the birthday card. Not just the picture of it, but the full story, everything. From how I found it tucked in with my daughter's gift to how Mark admitted it and how Kendra said she'd known I'd be mad. I didn't hold anything back. I didn't name them directly, but anyone who knew us knew exactly who I was talking about. Within 2 hours, it had over 500 comments. Within 4, it was being shared by people I hadn't spoken to in years. By evening, my phone was blowing up. Text after text, call after call. Friends, family, mutual acquaintances, people I hadn't seen since college. Most of them were shocked. Some were horrified. A few admitted they'd suspected something was going on but didn't want to get involved. But the best part? It got back to my parents. They called me immediately. My mom was crying. My dad was silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. They had no idea. None. They were devastated. Ashamed. My mom kept saying, "She was supposed to protect you. She was your sister." I told them everything. The timeline. The lies. The way they'd hidden it for over a year and then tried to sneak my daughter into it without even asking. They were furious. Not just at Kendra, but at Mark too. My dad actually said, "He's lucky I don't show up at his front door." That night, my parents told me they were done with both of them. And they meant it. They canceled Kendra's invitation to the family reunion. Blocked her on social media. Even sent her a message saying they were ashamed of her behavior and expected better from someone they raised. Suddenly, the two people who thought they had it all figured out were standing in the wreckage of their own making. And I hadn't even said the worst part yet. I'd saved that. Because I was about to drop something that would leave them scrambling, for real this time. I waited 2 more days. Let things simmer. Let them feel the pressure. Let Kendra sit with the silence from our parents. Let Mark wonder why no one from his family was returning his calls. I knew they'd be spiraling, trying to control the damage, trying to figure out what I'd do next. And then I dropped it. The final bomb. What they didn't know, what I hadn't told anyone yet, was that I'd gone to my lawyer right after discovering Kendra had been added to the school pickup list. And what Mark forgot, or maybe never thought about, was that our custody agreement included a clause that required written approval from both parents for any third-party pickup arrangements. By unilaterally adding Kendra and having her pick up our daughter, he violated that agreement. My lawyer drafted the paperwork fast. I filed for a formal custody modification. Not just that, I requested emergency temporary restrictions on Mark's unsupervised access until the issue was reviewed in court. But that wasn't all. I also forwarded the school the court order and sent them a letter making it absolutely clear that under no circumstances was my sister allowed on campus or permitted to pick up my daughter again. And once that was done, I sent a short message to Mark and Kendra. Just one sentence. "You should probably check your mail." Mark responded less than an hour later. 6 missed calls, 3 voicemails, a desperate text asking if we could talk about this like adults. I ignored every one. Later that night, Kendra messaged me from a burner account. She accused me of turning everyone against her and weaponizing my daughter because I couldn't handle being left behind. Left behind? No. I wasn't left behind. I'd been freed. And now, they were the ones standing in the middle of a storm they built, while I stood outside it, calm and steady, watching it all unravel. The court granted my emergency request. Mark's visitation was immediately suspended pending a formal review. Kendra was legally barred from having any contact with my daughter. I thought I'd feel triumphant seeing it all enforced, but what I actually felt was peace, calm, like I could finally breathe again. Meanwhile, their world was falling apart. Mutual friends stopped returning their calls. Mark's brother, who I was always close to, sent me a message saying he was embarrassed to share DNA with that man. And Kendra? She lost a huge freelance client after someone forwarded them my post. Apparently, they didn't want to be associated with someone who'd built a relationship on betrayal. My parents stayed firm. They still hadn't spoken to Kendra. My mom admitted she'd tried to pick up the phone one night, but every time she thought about it, she'd see the image of me holding that birthday card, and she just couldn't do it. Mark, for his part, kept trying. More messages. Emails. One voicemail after another, all full of shifting tactics. One minute he was apologetic, saying he never meant to hurt me. The next he was defensive, blaming me for blowing everything out of proportion and turning our daughter into a weapon. That one really got to me. Because I'd done everything I could to protect her. To keep her out of the chaos. They were the ones who dragged her into it. They were the ones who used her as cover for their secret life. And now that the light was shining on them? They couldn't take it. Kendra eventually deleted all her social media. Last I heard, she'd moved in with Mark full-time. The two of them were living in the apartment they used to lie about, now without anyone left to lie to. I hadn't responded to a single one of their attempts to reach me. Not because I didn't have things to say, but because the silence was louder. It's been a month since everything came crashing down. Mark and Kendra are still together, as far as I know. Living their truth, as Kendra once called it in a message she sent me that I never replied to. Maybe they think they've won. Maybe they think this was all worth it. But here's what they don't know. I'm not broken. I'm not bitter. I'm better. That silence I gave them? It was intentional. Because I realized something. People like them don't deserve an explanation. They don't deserve closure. They don't get to rewrite the story as a misunderstood love when what they built was on betrayal. I've been taking my daughter to therapy. She's doing well, laughing more, asking fewer questions. She hasn't asked to see her dad, not once. And while I'll never keep her from him if she truly wants to reconnect when she's older, for now, she's safe. She's grounded. She's mine. As for me, I went back to school. Enrolled in an online program I'd been putting off for years. Started running again. Reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages. Every day I'm rebuilding, piece by piece, but this time, I'm building for me. People still ask if I regret going public. If I regret airing everything. I don't. Because it wasn't just a story about betrayal. It was a warning. It was a reckoning. And above all, it was a reminder, to myself and to anyone watching, that silence isn't always strength. Sometimes, telling the truth is the power move. I've closed the door on that chapter. And I'm not looking back. Because what waited for me on the other side was peace. And that's something they'll never have.